The little girl huddled under the skeletal branches of a bare tree, shivering as the cold wind cut through her thin, tattered coat. Her hair was matted and streaked with dirt, and her small hands were red and cracked from the harsh November chill. She had been wandering the streets all day, searching for scraps of food or a dry corner to rest, but the city seemed to have no place for her. Each passerby avoided her gaze, wrapped in their own busy lives, leaving her to feel invisible. Clutched tightly in her arms was a small, worn-out doll, its once bright dress faded and torn. It was her only companion, a piece of comfort in a world that often seemed cruel and uncaring. She whispered to the doll, as if sharing her fears and hopes with someone who truly understood. "Don't be scared," she muttered softly. "We'll find something today, maybe." Her voice trembled, not just from the cold but from the exhaustion of living a life without warmth or certainty. As she moved along the wet pavement, puddles reflecting the gray, overcast sky, she spotted scraps of discarded food near a dumpster and quickly picked up a half-eaten sandwich. Her stomach growled, reminding her how hungry she was. Even so, she paused to watch a small bird hop across the ground, pecking for crumbs. For a moment, she envied the bird's freedom and carelessness. Life for her felt like a constant struggle just to survive the day, and she longed for a single moment of kindness, a gesture that might remind her she still belonged somewhere. A distant sound broke her reverie, the cheerful laughter of a child, high-pitched and carefree. It was so different from the harsh noises of the streets, the clanging of garbage bins, the shouting of angry strangers, the hum of passing cars. The laughter drew her gaze toward the park across the street. She noticed a small boy skipping along the path, completely oblivious to the rain-soaked ground. Something stirred inside her, a flicker of courage and instinct, and she found herself edging closer, drawn to the child not out of fear but out of an inexplicable need to connect, even for a fleeting moment. The boy skipped along the wet path, oblivious to the gray drizzle that slicked the ground. His small boots splashed in the puddles as he laughed, tossing his bright scarf over his shoulder without a care in the world. To him, everything was an adventure, every puddle a pond, every gust of wind a playful friend. But in a sudden, fleeting moment, his carefree step faltered. His foot slipped on the slick pavement, and he stumbled forward, his tiny arms flailing. Before anyone could reach him, a small, trembling hand shot out from the edge of the street. The little girl had instinctively rushed forward, driven by something she couldn't name, a need to help, a spark of empathy, or perhaps a simple desire to be seen. Her fingers, though cold and grimy, found his tiny shoulder and steadied him. The boy's surprise faded almost instantly, replaced by a look of trust, as if he instinctively knew he was safe. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Her words trembled, not from fear, but from the rare thrill of interacting with someone who didn't see her as invisible. The boy nodded, his wet hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes wide and bright, filled with curiosity rather than fear. He tilted his head and smiled, a small, genuine expression that warmed the girl's heart in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. The mother, who had been a few steps behind, gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She hurried over, her heels clicking against the pavement, panic etched on her face. She had seen the world through a lens of caution and protection, and seeing a strange, shivering child near her set off a wave of anxiety. But the boy's calm, unafraid gaze softened her instinctive alarm. He held the girl's hand lightly, as if acknowledging that she had acted with pure kindness, with no expectation of reward or recognition. For a brief, quiet moment, time seemed to slow. The rain fell gently around them, turning the park into a muted world of gray and silver, but in that small circle, warmth blossomed. Two lives, so different, yet now connected, hovered on the edge of something extraordinary. The girl had offered her touch without hesitation, and in return, she felt something she hadn't in years. A sense of worth, of purpose, and a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't entirely against her. The mother reached the little girl, her chest heaving slightly from running. She knelt down to meet the child's gaze, taking in the sight of her tattered coat, dirt-smudged face, and wide, wary eyes. For a moment, she saw only a fragile, frightened figure, a stark contrast to the comfortable, orderly world her own son had always known. She instinctively wanted to pull him away, to protect him from this unknown presence, but the boy's hand, still held by the girl, stopped her. "She helped me," he said simply, his voice earnest and full of trust. His small fingers squeezed hers, as if silently affirming that everything was okay. The mother's heart softened, an ache settling deep in her chest. She noticed the way the girl's gaze flicked toward the ground, shy but hopeful, and something inside her stirred, a mixture of empathy, guilt, and admiration for the courage of this little stranger. Without hesitation, she reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of bread wrapped in paper. "Here," she said gently, holding it out. "You must be hungry." The girl's eyes widened, disbelief flickering across her face. No one had ever offered her food without judgment or anger, and she hesitated, unsure if she should trust this unexpected kindness. The boy smiled at her encouragingly, and slowly, almost cautiously, she accepted the bread, holding it as if it were a treasure. The mother continued to watch her, noticing every detail: the thin, worn shoes barely protecting small, cold feet, the hollow cheeks and tired eyes, the hands that had clearly known hardship. She felt a pang of sorrow and a deep, sudden responsibility. Something compelled her to act, not just as a mother protecting her own child, but as a human being witnessing the quiet suffering of another. She offered her umbrella, shielding the girl from the rain, and wrapped a spare scarf around her shoulders. The little girl's lips trembled, and a shy, tentative smile appeared. She had been invisible for so long, unseen and overlooked, and yet here was someone who saw her, not as a nuisance, not as a problem, but as a child deserving care. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a flicker of hope. The boy's hand remained in hers, warm and steady, and together, they formed a small, unlikely circle of safety amidst the gray drizzle. In that moment, a fragile bond began to form, one that neither time nor circumstance could easily break. That evening, the mother couldn't shake the image of the little girl from her mind. She remembered the way the child had instinctively steadied her son, the courage in her hesitant eyes, and the quiet dignity she carried despite her tattered clothes. Something inside her whispered that this girl was not just a fleeting moment in their lives. She was someone who needed care, and who might, in turn, teach them something profound about kindness. Gathering blankets, warm clothes, and a small bag of food, the mother returned to the park, her heart pounding with both hope and apprehension. The girl stood under the skeletal branches of the tree where she had sheltered earlier, her doll clutched tightly to her chest. Her eyes widened as she saw the mother approach, carrying warmth and safety in her hands. She had grown accustomed to being ignored, or worse, chased away, so this gentle approach made her hesitate. But then she saw the boy running toward her, grinning, his hand outstretched. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped forward, allowing the mother to drape the blankets over her shoulders and wrap the scarf snugly around her neck. The food in the mother's hand felt heavier than she expected, not just in weight, but in the promise of care it represented. "Would you like to come with us? Just for tonight?" the mother asked, her voice soft but steady. The girl's gaze flickered between the warm, inviting eyes of the mother and the boy's encouraging smile. The offer was simple, yet it carried a world of hope, a chance she had never dared to imagine. Trembling slightly, she nodded. With tentative steps, she walked beside them, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of safety enveloping her. Each step away from the park was a step toward a life she had only dreamed of in stolen moments. The following days were a revelation. The girl was given a warm bed, nourishing meals, and clothes that fit her properly. But more than that, she discovered the extraordinary comfort of being wanted, seen, and loved. The boy became her companion in laughter and adventure, while the parents offered patience, understanding, and quiet guidance. She learned the joy of simple routines, brushing her hair, setting the table, listening to bedtime stories. Each act of care stitched together a sense of belonging she had never known. And in those quiet evenings, as she lay in her warm bed, the boy's hand resting lightly in hers, she realized how far she had come. The small, selfless touch that had brought her to them had changed everything. A single act of courage and compassion had created ripples of love that transformed not only her life but the lives of those who had opened their hearts to her. For the first time, she believed in the possibility of a future filled with safety, laughter, and hope.